Welcome everyone to the Insight Meditation Community of Charlotte. Hi everyone at home. If you'd like, take a nice stretch. Legs. Take a bigger breath in. Let it roll out. Everyone can hear me okay? Back. Everyone at home can still hear me okay? Thumb up somewhere. Thank you. Very good. So my name is Denise Owens. I am one of the 6 Dharma leaders here at IMCC. And tonight's talk is on mindful eating. Granted, I'm a bit behind the 8 ball because I realized Thanksgiving was last week. But hopefully by now, you've either consumed the leftovers or donated them to the local landfill to make the wildlife happy. Our post-Thanksgiving body sensations may, however, be still fresh in our minds and our middles, and can inform us how to choose how we nourish ourselves going forth in this holiday season and beyond. Imagine being at a party, freely offered delectable food right at arm's length there on the table. Free for the taking. In fact, it is actually placed there just for you. Okay. So tempting. This would be such a delightful experience. I can't let go of my attraction to this morsel. And in creeps the thought, oh, I shouldn't. What to do? We've all heard, don't should on ourselves and don't let others should on us. But it's reasonable to pause here and contemplate. Am I headed towards a moment of utter gratitude for this experience, or am I headed for regret in choosing this moment to consume the food that has become my fixation? Once consumed, will I then let go? Will I truly release the grasping, or will I dive in for another morsel or two? This angst, before and even after the delight that we may choose to eat, is suffering. We might even know that this will cause some suffering, and yet be so pulled and tempted with our grasping. Mindful eating necessitates knowing our motivations, setting an intention for well-being, putting forth a wholesome effort, and moment-to-moment awareness of our experience. I love this line in the book, The Heart of the Buddhist Teachings by Thich Nhat Hanh, who is a Buddhist monk. And it comes under the category of right action. He wrote that right action is a practice of touching love and preventing harm. He said, be aware of the suffering caused by unmindful consumption. I am committed to good health, both mental and physical, for myself, my family, and my society, by practicing mindful eating, drinking, and consuming. I will ingest only items that preserve peace, well-being, and joy in my body, in my consciousness, and in the collective consciousness of my family and society. We consume mindfully so that life will be possible for all. More is not always better. More often than not, the more we consume, the more we suffer. When do we decide, I've had enough already? The holiday season is a challenging time. It's a month-long season that's actually dedicated to consumption. In fact, you can make that 2 months if you throw in Halloween. Yet it can be a good time to practice mindful eating, to ward off any suffering and regret going forward. Mindful of our motivations, our thoughts, and our choices, are they indeed beneficial? It is wise to note our circumstances and our relationship to those circumstances before, during, and after an action. In his book, Mindfulness, Joseph Goldstein tells us, the first way of training is clearly knowing the purpose of doing an action before we do it, understanding whether or not it is of benefit to ourselves and others. Is it skillful or unskillful? Practicing this discernment has tremendous implications for our lives in this world because our motivations are often subtle and hard to see. They are often mixed or a series of conflicting motivations. It takes a lot of honesty, clarity, and mindfulness to see them clearly, to know the inner purpose behind our actions. Will my decisions lead to happiness or suffering? Where is this leading? Do I want to go there? It is easy to think of eating as just taking the food, placing it in our mouth, tasting, chewing, and swallowing. But getting to that point and the effects of that event are considerably more complex. During the process of mindful eating and mindful consumption, we can check in with our six senses: seeing, hearing, touch, smelling, taste, and thought, to see how these sensations are informing us before, during, and after eating, and all the events associated with eating. Now, this is in the Sunyata Nikaya, Sutta number 12, which is one of the Buddha's teachings. And it's called the Connected Discourse on Causation. And I want to preface this with a little bit of the story that leads up to this quote. In this reference, there is a story about a mother, a father, and a son who are starving. And the parents decide to take the life of their son to provide sustenance so that two may live rather than three die. In our society, this is a view on food that would be a bit hard, but here's what the sutta says. Edible food should be considered as similar to eating the son's flesh by way of the ninefold repulsiveness. The repulsiveness of having to go out to get it, to having to seek it, of eating it, the bodily secretions, the receptacle for food, the stomach, digestion and indigestion, of the smearing and of excretion. A bhikkhu should use his alms food in the way the couple eats the son's flesh, without greed, desire, without pickiness, without gorging themselves, without selfishness, without delusion about what they are eating, without longing to eat such food again, without hoarding, without pride, without disdain, without quarreling. Well, that should just about ruin our holiday traditions. Perhaps we can have a healthy respect for all involved in eating by just pausing, getting honest with our disposition and each moment involved in consuming. Our path to eating any particular item might start with the sensation of hunger. That's what we usually think it is. Or it may start from the thought of eating itself, obtaining or preparing the food, then planning how to execute the snack or meal, purchase the ingredients, prepare the items, cooking, serving, perhaps taking a moment of gratitude before consuming the item, the act of eating, maybe even breathing in there somewhere, choosing when to stop eating, getting up, storing leftovers, if you left any, cleaning up, changing into sweatpants, plopping down on the couch in a low energy state. Sleep, potentially with reflux. Wake, and with any luck, have an effective elimination, stepping on the scale, perhaps then judgment or numbing, or perhaps determined to hop onto a healthier path, or congratulating oneself with a high five in the mirror and starting all over again on ideas of what to eat on this fine day. I grew up in a Catholic home, and our grace prayer was very long. Most of us, I was one of 5 kids in the family, most of us mastered in saying this grace in one breath, so we could just eat already. My respect for what I was eating didn't really come until I was introduced to the book by Thich Nhat Hanh called Living Buddha, Living Christ. He wrote, before every meal, a monk or nun recites these 5 contemplations. This food is the gift of the whole universe, the earth, the sky, and much hard work. May we live in a way that is worthy of this food. May we transform our unskillful states of mind, especially that of greed. May we only eat foods that nourish us and prevent illness. May we accept this food for the realization of the way of understanding and love. Sometimes I'll do a gratitude prayer for everything that was necessary to get the food to the table: the sun, the earth, the water, the soil, the courageous farmers, the truckers, the grocery stores, the workers, my car, my ability to fix a meal, the manufacture of appliances. That's probably when I'm eating lima beans and Brussels sprouts. I'm stretching there. And the food itself. In mindful eating, we find ourselves fully present each step along the way, honest with our experience and whether or not we are in a state of greed, aversion, or delusion. Such as thinking a broken cookie has no calories, or you're doing everybody a favor by neatening up the cookie presentation. What would it be like to develop equanimity around food? Equanimity is having an even-mindedness in any circumstance and not needing that circumstance to be different than it is. Do we even want to develop equanimity around our food? In my experience, I have a reaction to food that ranges anywhere from "this is the most sensual desire" to total aversion and disgust. It may be true that half the fun of our food is just the excitement and anticipation of the experience. Are our taste buds tickled before we ever even touch the item? Are we Pavlov's dog? So I'm not sure if I really want to be equanimous in regards to food. But if I did develop equanimity, perhaps the probability of me being able to wear my favorite jeans would improve. It would be a good idea to release my grasping so I can trim back on my suffering at all the other times when I'm not eating. In the Majjhima Nikaya, again, Sutta 13, the greater discourse on the mass of suffering. And this is regarding sensual pleasures. And what bhikkhus is the gratification in the case of sensual pleasures? Bhikkhus, these are the 5 chords of sensual pleasure. Forms recognized by the eye that are wished for, agreeable, and likable, connected with sensual desire and provocative of lust. Sounds cognizable by the ear, odors recognizable by the nose, flavors recognizable by the tongue, tangibles cognizable by the body that are wished for, desired, agreeable, likable, connected with sensual desire and provocative of lust. These are the 5 chords of sensual pleasure. And what bhikkhus is the escape in the case of sensual pleasures? It's the removal of the desire and lust, the abandonment of desire and lust for sensual pleasures. Now I find this a little tough. Do we not want a life worth living? Mark Twain quote in The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, I promise not to do a thing, to promise not to do a thing is the surest way in the world to make a body want to go and do that very thing. We can still have total enjoyment of the sensations of eating, but the key is to remember to be present in the moment and have awareness. That is what we are aiming for. And if the pleasant moment is pleasurable, well, enjoy it. Just let go of the desire and the lust before the actual activity, and let go of the grasping after the consumption to reduce inner angst and suffering. In the Mindful Diet book by Ruth Wolever and Beth Reardon of the Duke Integrative Health Center, they say paying attention is the opposite of what both our external culture and our learned packaged responses encourage us to do. Society wants us to stay unconscious. And paying attention is the opposite of what most of us are doing. By practicing mindfulness, you can begin to notice the subtle underlying thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations that drive our habits. The awareness is the beginning of change. They mention an NIH funded study on the effects of mindfulness of eating. Participants lost weight. They reported it, meaning the dieting or the eating healthy and mindful, not feeling like a struggle. It helped people decrease their overeating. In another study, 2 groups received the same eating advice, but one group received mindfulness training. That group was shown to have digested and absorbed their food more efficiently. And they reported being less likely to overeat sweets and high-fat foods and being satisfied with smaller portions. With practice, you can learn to simply observe intentionally without holding judgment, non-judgmental principles of mindfulness. Non-judgment allows us to parse the facts or data from the story in our minds. Non-judgment frees us to notice more versus the counterproductive shame avoidance spiral, which deprives us of present moment awareness and the equanimity to make wiser decisions. So this comes down not to being inherently good or bad, but is this helpful or not helpful for well-being? And it's not just about weight, but about nourishing the body. Garbage in might not equal garbage out, but garbage outcome within the body. What does this do to our mind, body, and spirit? Do you eat with a numbness out of habit or to avoid guilt? Are you thinking that your heart and liver can stand this? Does it wipe you out so you don't want to participate in family conversation or activities? Or do you numb out eating to not participate in family activities and conversation? Does cooking all of the holiday treats exhaust you and bring pain to your body? Are you denying your body when it needs food? Are you denying an opportunity for petit goût, French for a little taste, a small bite, a sample, so we don't lose out on the experience? Have you given 20 minutes for the food to hit your gut so your body knows whether or not it truly needs more? I am a pelvic floor physical therapist, and I see a lot of patients who have some GI issues. So I'd like to share just some generalized tips for GI health that might help us with digestion, etc., and see if you notice a better after consumption experience when practicing these tips. Take that moment of gratitude and pause, as mentioned above, to bring ourselves into the present moment. It's recommended to eat in a calm environment so that we foster parasympathetic tone in our nervous system. That's our rest and digest nervous system. When we are in the sympathetic nervous system, fight, flight, and fright, it reduces our digestion. So we want to not be watching NCIS Miami. We don't want to be playing hard rock music. And maybe we avoid political talk at the table. Okay. Chew thoroughly. Enjoy every moment of this sensation as if you are eating the very last Lindt chocolate ever on earth. Noticing the arising and passing of each sensation without grasping for it to be any different. With chewing, we mechanically break down the food, but we also start to release enzymes that begin digestion. Bacteria have a field day on larger chunks of food. So you may find the dog actually walking away from you. Best to eat meals where you have enough to provide a little stretch to the stomach. That sets off what's called your gastrocolic reflex, which promotes the motion or peristalsis of your colon. So things keep moving down the GI path towards the right direction at an efficient pace. Also, sit up tall. It doesn't have to be militaristic, okay, but long and light. A study had shown that when Westerners eat, what we tend to do is we take our utensils, start to bring it up towards us, and then we bow down to grab the food. Well, that actually kinks our GI system. It doesn't keep our tubes open. So sitting upright helps us with better digestion. And there was a suggestion at one course, take a little ball and place it behind your back, between your shoulder blades. Actually have the whole family do this. And the first one to drop the ball is a rotten egg. Proper hydration. Get your fruits and veggies. Recommended to have 2 servings per meal of fruit, a veggie, or a fruit and a veggie, unless your doctor or nutritionist has told you elsewise. Not only does that help with the fiber to get proper elimination, but manages our blood sugars. If any of you have noticed, when our blood sugars are off, we tend to be off for ourselves, and maybe not so nice to folks around us. Also reduces the risk of colon cancer, and whole grain fibers can do the same. High-fat foods and alcohol slow the gut. Warm beverages with meals enhances transit time. I don't think that means a hot toddy. It's going to help us, okay? Diaphragmatic breathing, or breathing pattern, actually massages our gut. Now, regarding mindfulness of after, this journal book was gifted to me in 2008 by a coworker. It's the ultimate in recycling. The paper for this journal is recycled from elephant excrement. Okay, so we're going for after, sorry. Okay, so I got this in 2008, so this is 4 years before I knew anything about insight meditation or Vipassana meditation. And being a little silly, I wrote an entry on the first page. I'm gonna get fired for this talk, I know, entitled Pooping the Ego, okay? But I believe it's apropos for today's talk, so I'd like to read this. Feeling in and full of myself, a brief moment of awareness that I am holding on, a tightness in my body. Why do I feel restraint? Surely this too shall pass. A holding on to the point of an upset stomach, not running fast enough to the throne, subconsciously wanting the lightness of letting go. Finally, I have made time to be in the right place. Is it perfect? Is it complete? Is it normal? Leave it behind. I can carry on better without the weight. Acceptance, enjoyment, enthusiasm. I'm just glad it is. So I feel kind of proud that I was drawn to this tradition because it's just affirming everything. I tell my patients, I believe that if everyone had a proper elimination daily, there would be world peace, okay? And I tell them that their commitment to healthy digestion is your contribution to world peace. I wish all of us the nourishment we need, including mindfulness, positively conditioning our path forward for inner and outer peace. May we all live happily ever after.